Hello, welcome to another video on the Scouring Early Access. Today's game is going to be a 4v4 game with me on my team, the Perfect Gamer, my ally Sparrow, and then a Cena heart emoji, I guess, and then Dinchi code. And then on the enemy team is going to be Siba Scammy 6, Tatanka, Glown, and What players. And over here in the minimap, we can see we spawned on the top left half of the map. The enemy spawned on the other half. Anyways, over here, I spawned as a white orc player. I am pretty much going to be doing the usual archer build order. Then my ally over here, orange orc, Dinchi code. Looks like he is also playing orc. But he does like he's going to be making maybe a few warriors and then transitioning into making a few archers. Over here I can see the cyan orc, a Cena. Looks like he's going to be making a few warriors. Or maybe he's going to be waiting until the Scouring camp is fully finished before making some archers. Now here my final ally, blue orc, Sparrow. Looks like he's going to be making archers, but he does have one warrior they can use to potentially capture an outpost. Over here, the first enemy player, Siba Scammy 6, playing his red orcs. Looks like he was a little AFK for maybe a minute or 30 seconds, so it's going to be a little behind the blue player, but at least he still has a teammate that can potentially help him out as well. Anyways, he's pretty much doing a warrior build. He's probably trying to get a few archers out as well a bit later on. Over here, the enemy player, what? It's playing as yellow humans. It doesn't look like he has a swordsman build order. Over here, the purple human player, Tatanka. Looks like he's also doing a few swordsmen. And somehow he managed to get a fast tier 2. So he's probably going to be doing some kind of build order. Sort of unusual. Maybe the Cavalier build order, because you can see he only has a few swordsmen. It's not currently producing anymore. Over here we can see the final enemy, Glown, playing as a black human player. You see has a meat shield swordsman. And he's going to be producing all the archers. And I guess forgot to mention that this is a new map I made called Marshes. Like a marshland where it's all wet. It's like a swamp or whatever. And pretty much the idea for this map came from another map I played called Midlands, where pretty much your enemy can spawn very close to you. In a similar, I guess, distance from this orange player to my base here. It's not exactly super close, but it is like a maybe 10 to 20 second walk. But between the players over here, across this gold base here in the middle, that can be contested. It is going to be a bit of a longer walk, I guess you could say. You know, here in the corners, you can go with your ally here and try and clear these units. This way you can get a very safe base here, because the enemy's going to have to go through your base, or through your ally's base, or even through this middle here, before they can ever attack your expansion, which is pretty nice. And of course, if you spawn next to an ally here, between this base, then you can decide who gets this base, but it's a rich base. Which means he has maybe 50% more gold. I'm not really sure, but these corner bases have a bit less. And I guess over here, everyone has a set of wolves next to their base. So you're able to level up your units through these constantly respawning wolves. That is, if you know how to keep them alive and keep on farming them for some XP and gold, I guess. And over here, in the middle here, put this outpost here. at each corner, which allows you to kind of defend your little flank here a little easier. You can just build a few barricades. You put a few cannons so you can really hold the position really well. And also, of course, straight on for goblin mode, which is always super fun to play because it becomes even harder and harder the longer a match goes on. You can see everyone's having their share of the goblins here. But the first wave is relatively easy. You just get one fat mountain troll and a few stabby boys over here. But every following night, I think you get an extra mountain troll and a few more goblins. But also the mountain trolls gain more health as well, so that can also be a factor in how difficult it can be. Here you can see the enemies just clearing the corner here. Oh, and I guess another thing I didn't mention is that there's a lot of space here in the corners, so if you're kind of running out of space in your main base, then going in the corner is a very, I guess, good incentive to try and clear this place so you can get more space for buildings, like technological buildings, or I guess there's some kind of incentive to get a second base as well, because it's pretty easy to hold. And over here in the middle of the map, there are 4 rich gold mines here, or gold bases you could say. And pretty much here I put some, I guess, falling logs, I guess to describe like a chopped down forest that people wanted to chop to get all this valuable gold here in the middle. And here I guess it's kind of risky to get a base in the middle, because anyone can easily walk in for one of these pathways here. But after playing for a while, I think, on this map, you can actually figure out that these outposts are very helpful. And pretty much after you capture your 2 outposts closer to your ally, I guess, and you're all going to be defending your 2 outposts on the other side here. If you control them and put archers on here, then it's going to be very easy to defend the middle. Just going to give you a lot of extra gold, because these are rich gold mines here. And that's pretty much what we were doing here, trying to capture these outposts. That way we can get some information, and I guess just know what's going on here. Over here I put these outposts, put some water around them, and I guess put some rocks in these little floating leaves here. It gives a very nice atmosphere of this place being, I guess, super old. And so it matches this like rundown outposts here. Looks like the enemies are trying to work together here in the middle, but I'm also here helping out my ally. And so here we are able to somewhat scare away the enemies, you could say. Here you can see there's a lot of space here, even after making a base, so you can make a lot of farms, or barracks, buildings, or whatever you want here. And it's super safe, especially if you have no darkness here. They're building on the buildings. Over here you can see the enemies are being under attack by my allies, orange and the blue player. They're beginning to bombard him, but the yellow ally is not too far from the red one, so he's going to be reinforced really well. And of course another interesting, I guess, part of this map is that even though this is the smallest 8-player map in the whole game, the distance between you and your ally makes it that it's very easy and, I guess, accessible to try and help out your ally, send reinforcements. So can somewhat quickly react and send help. Even though you can see it's kind of super close to an enemy. Looking back, it is actually somewhat still fine, because there's still plenty of time to send in help. Now here you can see, maybe I'll put off some cannons here. And even if you put just a few barricades here, then it's going to be very annoying to go through this choke point. Looks like my allies are still being pretty annoying. Here I was trying to get rid of this swordsman. This purple is walking around here. Here I was pretty much preparing to somewhat attack. I already got a artillery ability. Gonna be getting a 4th cannon. I believe I got archer damage, so I was preparing to do a big attack against the black bear here. And here you can see, also I put this little thing here. It's going to be easier to see if I highlight here. It's like a little lake with a statue, which can add a bit of interesting scenery to the map. And as you can see here, my allies and the enemies are somewhat just continue on these artillery wars. Just keep on bombarding each other and not really killing each other, just being annoying. But of course, we keep on bombarding. It's going to bring the attention of all these enemies here. You can see. And so, it's going to make all these enemies rally together to try and do a big attack against blue player. We can see here, doesn't really have much left here, just a few cannons. And then just a bit of units from orange, so pretty much he has nothing left but workers in his base. Which is a little unfortunate for him, but I guess that's why you want to try and make some barricades, or I guess make a few guard towers with cannons. But of course, it's easy to say, it's not easy to do. Especially when the enemy has so many cannons to try and attack you here. Of course, while my allies being killed here, try to go here in the bottom to try and kill the bike player. Because by the time I get all the way up here, it's going to be too late. And so might as well go below here, try and kill an enemy. But of course, it's not looking good, because my allies don't really have much that they can do against these cannons. Especially for the swordsmen and cavaliers defending them. And so pretty much my blue ally is on his last legs, you could say. Here I managed to kill all the workers. Just keep on bombarding and shooting them a lot. But here, eventually, the purple player is going to be able to reinforce his cavaliers, and I guess maybe a few cannons. And here, I guess, I decide to retreat to this position, which would be a little easier to defend. Because I didn't know how much more reinforcements are going to be coming here. But I didn't know that purple didn't have a substantial force in the north here. And here my blue ally gets eliminated, so now his workers turn neutral. Here you can see me killing the buildings here, so it's a very nice place to take over. Here I was just bombarding, trying to break these two barracks buildings. So even if I can't really kill the black bear, I was trying to take out his production, at least. Here I was making some munchers, getting a tier 3 to potentially get the rage. Here my ally already has a tier 3. Making a few munchers. And my cyan ally also has a good amount of munchers. But he doesn't have a tier 3, so they're going to be a good meat shield, but not very effective as they could be in the future, I guess, when you are able to get the rage. From here you can see purple decides to run in here, try and take care of my forces. But that does cost him all of these cavaliers here, you can see. Loses more than half of all of his cavaliers he had. But he does kill most of my archers, and at least 4 cannons. And I guess this does somewhat push me back, and so I'm not going to be really annoying them. Even though this barracks was very close to being destroyed from just 2 or 3 artillery cannons. But of course I was also being pushed back because I had to deal with these goblins. And this is a fatter, I guess, troll. You can see there's 2 of them, and there's even more goblins per player, of course. But I guess goblin waves can be slightly unfair compared to how they're, I guess, what kind of spawn you get. Because we usually spawn in a darkness away from your base, but it doesn't really guarantee them spawning outside in the middle of nowhere. But you can actually spawn in the base of your enemies. That is technically someplace dark, like here, for example. And so you can spawn here, which can be a little funny for your enemies to deal with. Here you can see this very useful choke point here. And the yellow, I guess, lost all the cavaliers. And I guess Scion was unfortunately caught out of place here with struggling food. Which of course is a very unfortunate and annoying position to be in when you can't really run away. You just lose all the units for free, pretty much. And over here you can see the enemies are preparing a big assault once again. With purple, yellow, and the red players beginning to try put their forces together. Try and attack the players on top here. And of course, in the meantime, I was making a lot of munchers. Put a few potions on them. I was kind of preparing to attack the black player once again. Some artillery, a few archers, and then a good amount of munchers here. And I think I do have a rage, so my munchers can be somewhat effective. But over here you can see the enemies begin attacking. There's all 3 of them here. There's only, I guess, some munchers here and a few archers. And so we don't really have much on our side to deal with this huge army. But instead of letting my allies die, I decided to send in some reinforcements to try and maybe slow down the enemies by killing out of their army here, I guess. Yes, cannons are pretty nice at, I guess, pushing against an enemy, but all these infantry units, like cavaliers or swordsmen, these are the units that actually destroy these buildings, so taking care of their ground troops can also slow down a push, because these cannons can't really, I guess, kill buildings very fast, but they are good at, I guess, map control, you could say. They can destroy rooftops full of archers, but are going to take a while to destroy the buildings themselves. And you can see here, this base is somewhat staying alive for now. Orange is even trying to fight back by some bombarding tactics. And here I guess I saw the bike wasn't really attacking me, just hanging around here. And so I decided to just send my reinforcements north to try and push all of these units away. Or I guess to try and at least deal with this cannon army, you could say. Send some archers, some cannons, and some munchers. I guess I was also trying to make a few farms. So I was a little busy. But here I finally arrived to try and help out my allies. Focus down these units here, so my ally Citadel can still be, I guess, surviving here. And so we begin bombarding here. And I guess someone fighting. Enemies are losing kind of a good amount of their units here. But we do have a lot of bases. I think 3 bases each here. Or I guess black has 2 bases and then purple has 2. But yellow and red have 3 bases each. Red even has a 4th base, so they're going to be producing their armies very quickly. But it's going to be hard to take care of them. Here I guess I saw that my allies were somewhat, I guess, capable of somewhat slowing them down here. So I'll try to take this time to try and fight the black player here, because he was kind of bombarding me here, so I was expecting some kind of attack here eventually, which is why I moved down here to try and regroup and try to do a big attack against enemies. Here, of course, I try to send about 20 workers to the middle. Sometimes this sort of tactic works where you can try to make a base in the middle and hope no one finds your base. But of course, this exact moment, I get attacked by purple and black. And of course, I lose all my cannons here. And in the meantime, the yellow and red begin their final assault against the cyan player's main base. And of course, orange doesn't have as much production or bases, and so you can't really defend as effectively. Here, purple just decides to feed my army by just losing all his units here. I mean, it's slowing me down a little bit, but black didn't really, I guess, take advantage of that as much as he could have. So only now he moves into my base. But now I'm ready to go and take the fight to his base. Of course, here I'm fighting in my base. In the meantime, the side player kind of lost his main base. And they're going to be eventually losing this corner base as well. He was able to kill all of these cannons, but I did lose a few munchers. Here black tried to make some barricades to try and slow me down, but I decided to just keep on pushing because I knew my time was running out because of all these bases were going to be dying eventually. And so I didn't have much time left until they're going to be attacking orange and then attacking my main base. And over here you can see purple made a base here, and there's even enough space to make even more things here. And as I mentioned before, you can make a lot of barricades here. It's going to take a long time for any attackers to try and go through here to even attack your bases in the middle of the map. And I guess purple even makes another base here, so it's going to be having a lot of gold over time. And here, just by the time I'm about, I guess, to finishing up the black player's main base, all the bases on top have been destroyed. This huge army of red and the yellow player are now going to be running against the base of the orange player. Basically doesn't have much, just a few archers, a handful of munchers, and I guess a few cannons and a few devourers. But of course, this is a perfect opportunity for the goblins to start spawning. Here you can see it's the third night, which means there's 3 mountain trolls and a whole lot more goblins here. Here you can see the little random spawns. Goblins spawned over here and over here. And so can be a little different or a bit random, but it's usually somewhat, I guess, fair, I would say. But here you can see the enemies are not having much trouble by killing them, or I guess the yellow player did have some trouble here. You can see he maybe lost around 10 cavaliers, maybe a little more. So they're going to be having fun now. Over here, orange, I guess. That's probably one of his waves here that died. But he took the time to try and break this base. Over here, I was killing potentially the purple or black players goblin wave. But now I was preparing to pretty much attack right after I'm going to be killing this final troll. Now just a few high level archers, which are good for sniping very low health units. And I do have a few cannons that I can use to bombard the enemy. And over here, I saw on the minimap that my goblin wave somehow spawned over here. We can see spawned not really in the darkness, but technically it is in the darkness away from my base, so I guess that's how it works. But anyways, it's pretty interesting how I managed to pretty much run in here, destroy my enemy's whole army. Just now I'm gonna leave them to the mercy of all these goblins, which of course I'm going to be using my advantage to give me time to try and kill the black player in the meantime. GS is also another cool little thing you can do when the goblin waves are active. You just kill your enemy's army and just let them have fun with all the remaining goblins. Over here you can see the black and yellow finally had enough, I guess, fun with what do we call them? Goblins. So we decide to attack once more. Where you can see devourers are actually somewhat useful in taking down a few cannons. Over here, the black player was eliminated. I managed to kill his final building. And here I saw I had to somewhat hurry up by killing all the enemies, because if I don't hurry up, then all the enemies are gonna steamroll their way through the orange player's base, and then eventually they're gonna attack me, and then I'm gonna die. So it was all interesting trying to fight as effectively and as fast as possible. But of course this was my attacking force, which I was very, I guess, effective at using, and losing very few of them here because of the help of the artillery from the cannons. And here I was making a lot of reinforcements, which I decided to move towards the top here, because we can see this huge army of the yellow and the red player here, basically just overwhelming the orange player. It doesn't really have much left, maybe a few archers and 2 flying heads here. But pretty much I didn't really have to kill all of these units. I just had to slow them down long enough for my army in the bottom here to effectively kill their base, I guess. So here I throw my units in here, trying to kill these melee units that are good at breaking down buildings. And overall, I did lose all the punchers, but the enemy also did lose all their units. You can see how little their army is here now. So the enemy decides to retreat here for a little bit. And here, I'm finally moving into my main base of the Yo player. Because I didn't really have time to go to the middle here, because I was just trying to kill the food economies of the main players. And to do that, you have to actually go into the main base of the enemy, where they have most of their farms. And here pretty much Yo surrenders, because he doesn't have much of an army left. Even though he did have one base here, but I guess he decides to surrender. And of course, in the meantime here, you can see the purple player is just rebuilding here, but without any farms, it's going to be a little difficult for him, because he's going to have to make a few farms, which is going to slow him down from making any military units. Over here, I'm finally beginning to attack the final player, or I guess the final enemy player, an actual main base. So here, the red player trying to attack the orange player, but this is a little interesting, I guess, point in the game where he has to decide to keep on attacking or to try and run home to try and save his own main base, which is pretty much the same situation I was in when I was attacking the black player, while my allies were kind of dying in the north. And so I can see here, red player doesn't really have much left, just a lot of bases, but much of an army, I guess. And this is where he tries to attack my big army here, trying to do his final defense, I guess. But here you can see I managed to just obliterate his whole army, and by losing, I guess, a good amount of units, but not as much as I could have. Here you can see the heads. They love to melt away to the bombarding cannons here. And here, the red player decides to surrender because he was kind of being attacked by a lot of these cannons, and so he didn't understand that he's going to be losing eventually here. But the purple player decides to still fight on. But now we can see I send in more reinforcements, which have all the potions on them, so it's going to be very difficult for the enemy to take him down. But you can still hear, you can still see here that these barricades are being pretty effective at just slowing me down, which is also another interesting part of this map, where you can just block off the middle and try and secure this effective position, you could say. Here pretty much we send in our final forces, and pretty much the enemies have close to nothing left to fight with. And there you have it. Final player surrenders. And that's pretty much the end of a match. The results. And we can see here, I kind of mined similar to the enemy players, but I guess I did mine maybe 5,000 gold less than all the other players here. Here you can see my ally kind of died very early because the enemies did a very powerful push against him. I believe it was 3 players against like 1.5, so that's why he died pretty quickly. Part over here you can see my two allies managed to buy me all the time for me to, I guess, do big continuous attack against the enemies on the bottom. Tried me to pretty much kill all the enemy armies and then run into their main base and killing all their workers, which is why there's a lot of, I guess, unit kills over here. And I did somehow manage to not lose that many units, even though I did make a very similar amount to most of the endgame players, you could say. And over here you can see killing out neutrals, or the goblins or trolls, and being able to effectively deal with them was, I guess, a big part of this match that allowed me to win effectively, I guess. Anyways, if you liked the video, you can leave a like, leave a comment. If you want to see more videos on the Scouring Early Access, then you can subscribe. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.